Belém broke into a riot of color over the weekend. On Saturday, tens of thousands of people took to the streets of this city on the banks of the Amazon River in Brazil. One estimate put the number of people here at around 70,000. Called the March Unificada or the Great People's March, demonstrators walked 4.5 kilometers through the city. They demanded climate justice and that governments and corporations that had disproportionately caused global warming provide reparations for these impacts to vulnerable and marginalized communities. Communities which have not contributed to this but are still bearing the brunt of climate change. According to news reports, some protesters even dressed in black to mourn the death of fossil fuels with coffins of coal, oil, and gas. This is the first time in 4 years that protests have been permitted in a COP organizing country. The spirit continued on Monday, November 17. Brazilian indigenous peoples led a march to the COP30 venue. The Global March, as it has been called, was accompanied by drum beats, music, singing, dancing, and a clear call to prioritize the people of the Amazon. The Wire's news editor, Samashri Sarkar, shot these videos at the protest village in Belém on Monday. Here's what she has to say.
Hi, this is Shomushik and I'm at Belém in Brazil, reporting from the mouth of the Amazon where the COP climate discussions, COP30, are taking place. My day did not begin in this enormous tent, which is called the Blue Zone. It began at a place called Aldeia COP, where 3,000 indigenous leaders are camping out the period of the COP30 just to get their voices heard, to tell people who the leaders of the forests are, and to just let people know that the persons who've been taking care of the forests of the vast wildernesses are the ones who need to be taken into account when these discussions take place. This was a long march that they undertook. It was 5 kilometers long, and they reached the outskirts of this COP village that I am standing in, sitting in right now. So over here, one of the first things I attended was the India Pavilion. India is among many countries who have set up pavilions all around me. Today, later in the day, we have something happening at the India Pavilion. I'm told the Indian Environment Minister is about here. Today is also a day when ministerial talks are supposed to begin. It's the second week of COP, and we have a lot of security as a result. Attendees who came here a week ago tell me that scenes were quite different last week, when it was mostly civil society leaders, ministers in Brazil, and also policy deciders who were in talks. One of the press conferences that I attended it had the COP leadership and also the Vice President of Brazil, Geraldo Alckmin. One of the most interesting things that I heard there was Brazil's Environment and Climate Change Minister, Marina Silva, who said that the COPs are not linear things, and you can only compare them to the curves of the Amazon River. I suppose the allusion was to the fact that this COP is going to deliver on many promises, and that there isn't going to be one overarching achievement that this COP can speak of. Nonetheless, it got a huge applause from the journalists in the audience, which I'm told is a rare thing here. Silva also said that the beauty of the COP is something we should lean into, and that's something that's very, very possible given the sheer number of people over here. You can see behind me people rushing off to attend more meetings, and somewhere some sort of a discussion, some sort of a consensus is bound to come up.
That was Samashri Sarkar reporting from Belém. Here are some more happenings at COP30 from Saturday, when week 1 wrapped up, and Monday, when week 2 began. A crucial halfway point for the climate conference. Climate finance dominated discussions at the COP on these days, and rightly so. The third high level ministerial dialogue on climate finance took place on Saturday. In his plenary, UNFCCC Executive Secretary Simon Steele urged developed countries to give more. In his plenary on Monday, Steele also spoke about money.
In 7 days, nations have mustered $1 trillion charge into clean energy and grids, rallied around a global plan to quadruple sustainable fuels, unlocked new waves of green industry, and started preparing a pipeline for new adaptation investment. They reflect an irrefutable fact driven by this process. A new economy is rising faster than forecasts. The good news, last year alone, more than $2.2 trillion flowed into renewable energy. That's more than the GDP of over 180 countries. This real-world progress is not a nice to have. It is mission critical. In this new era, much will depend on bringing our process closer to the real economy to speed up implementation and spread its vast benefits to billions more people, as I have been saying.
Steele urged countries at COP30 to speed up progress in negotiations. On Saturday, India spoke on behalf of the like minded developing countries and raised several concerns that developing countries have about climate finance. The existing goal on climate finance, the new Collective Quantified Goal, or the NCQG, is suboptimal and a deflection of the responsibilities of developed countries in mobilizing and ensuring climate finance, India said. The existing goal, which was set at the last COP, says that developed countries must provide at least USD 300 billion per year by 2035 to fund climate action in developing countries. Developing countries, meanwhile, have said that this amount just doesn't cut it. India highlighted clauses on climate finance listed in Article 9 of the Paris Agreement. This article and climate finance is something that several countries also referred to in the high level segment on Monday, where member parties and groups of countries gave their statements. Palau, speaking on behalf of the Alliance of Small Island States, said that adaptation is a priority for the group. They called on parties at COP30 to operationalize Article 9.1 and at least triple annual outflows for climate finance. Iraq, speaking on behalf of the G77 countries and China, also highlighted the importance of scaling up climate finance, saying that this was the core of priorities for this group. Implementation of the global goal on adaptation is crucial, Iraq said. Now, several countries, especially small island states such as Solomon Islands and Tuvalu, which are threatened by rising sea levels due to climate change, also referred to how the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit set by the Paris Agreement was non-negotiable. India delivered its statement in the high-level segment on Monday at Belém. Union Environment Minister Bhupender Yadav said that India has demonstrated successfully that development and environment and stewardship can advance in tandem. Yadav said that India would declare our revised NDCs, or nationally determined contributions, till 2035 and also the first biennial transparency report. He didn't specify when. Remember, India has not submitted its third NDC yet. It was due in February this year. The UNFCCC called for late submissions by September, but India did not make that deadline either. India also said that developed countries must reach net zero before announced dates and fulfill their obligations under Article 9.1 of the Paris Agreement and deliver new, additional, and concessional climate finance estimated to be in trillions of dollars. Means of implementation must be adequate, accessible, affordable, and free from restrictive intellectual property barriers, Yadav added. Meanwhile, according to the United Nations Environment Programme's Global Methane Status Report, launched on Monday, India is the third largest emitter of methane in the world. Methane is a greenhouse gas that increases global warming. The major sources of methane are livestock and agriculture. India contributes 12% of global agricultural methane. Methane produced during rice cultivation in India is projected to rise by 8% by 2030. India has not really addressed its methane emissions in any way. Our NDCs do not talk of this. Negotiations are still ongoing at the Belém COP. Some draft texts have come in, but there's still much to be done and finalized. So much so that Brazil on Monday extended negotiations into the night, according to news reports. There's been debate on whether there will be a cover text or cover decision at COP30. A cover text is basically a summary of all the political decisions taken at a COP. Dolago has previously said that COP30 will not have a cover text, but on Saturday he said that if countries want it, it will happen. Finance and trade are still points of much debate. Unilateral trade measures, such as the European Union's carbon border adjustment mechanism, are something that developing countries, including India, have expressed displeasure about, like the wire explained in our last video. But it looks like the EU may not back off on this. On Monday, too, the EU, in its statement during the high level segment, talked about carbon pricing and said it was an important step to take to tackle carbon emissions. That's it from The Wire at the moment. We will be back on the 20th bringing you more COP30 news.